Joy,
Okay.
what's the solution to what you think is ailing this the commission?
One thing I think we got right is that we gave IEBC Commissioner Security of Tenure. And what the Security of Tenure does, it puts them at par with other people who do such high-risk jobs, for example, judges and other chairmen of other constitutional commissions, that you're able to do your work without the fear of wanton reprimand for whatever reason. The Elections Act in Kenya actually places personal responsibility, not just on the chairman, but on anyone who works for the IEBC who does something to subvert the elections. So already, the law envisages a situation where if Ben does something deliberate in his role as an IEBC officer, even if you are a policeman at a polling station and you commit an electoral offense, you can face charges. But like I said earlier, the problem we have with the IEBC is our political hygiene. I think one of the important things that we need to do is move away from the politicians being the ones responsible for nominating who sits on the IEBC. Because they send people there imagining that they're going to be their agents of change or their get-out-of-jail-free card when the rubber meets the road. And so when somebody doesn't play ball, they shout the loudest. So, for example, when Chebukati was brought in, we hounded out Isaka San. Chebukati came in and was one of Raila Odinga's strongest supporters, and he was seen as somebody who will take care of Raila's interests. When he got in there and as a senior lawyer understood his constitutional mandate and stood his ground as chairman and now not as a political party operative, the next day he became a villain and has carried that cross until now like an albatross. If we get the politicians out of the process of nominating and appointing who becomes an IEBC commissioner, and their role only comes in as parliament in vetting who ascends to the office, I think if we're getting people who are not in the political party system, have not been party operatives, and not anybody's former this or that, but are Kenyans willing to serve, then even the caliber of people you attract to those jobs are people who are willing to serve. I think that's like bottom line, because politicians have shown that they cannot be trusted to make selections and not keep dipping their finger back in the cookie jar, imagining that there's still something left in there for them. So for me, that would be first port of call.
Kipchumba, are politicians still trying to appoint commissioners?
I think the bad...
And what do you think is the solution to
the issue we are suffering with is the hangover of the politicians of the former regime, whereby the IPPG kind of a model, because strictly speaking, our politicians do not have a role in appointment of the IEBC commissioners. But kwa ground, as they say, it will be different, that is what they do. Like the commissioners we have now, the four, those are purely handshake commissioners. You can even say, while seated in this TV, who was brought by who. It's only that we don't want to go there. But what we need to do going to the future, number one, the constitutional architecture around Article 140 creates a lacuna whereby we have the election offense, but the offender has to wait to go to the High Court for that. The offense, the electoral offenses are not tried in that court. When you read the strict reading of Article 140, those issues that are tried there, the jurisdiction is a bit very narrow. So the issue is we need to expand the jurisdiction of that court when sitting as an election court to include electoral offenses, so that if you find an offender, you can deal with them at that level. Because our country, we have a very short span of memory, and even the issues that interest this country do not last over 8 hours. If today you are to, let's say, find an electoral offense committed by a commissioner, for example, tomorrow you will not be in a position to follow it up because the country will move on so quickly. So at the end of the day, we will not realize that there was an offense that the offender was not dealt with when it is 5 years. The other thing we need to do also is to make sure that we tighten the process of people going to the apex court with the election, where we are invoking Article 140 again, because we have allowed spurious claims to go to the court of the apex court in the name of electoral petitions. So at the end of the day, people bring all manner of things. They throw everything to the wall of the Supreme Court, expecting anything to stick and to get away with it. So we need to have a sense of responsibility on the politicians. And my final point, we go back to our nominations. Ben Kitili, if we held credible nominations, it will help us weeding out people, and it will make sure that politicians are accustomed to losing elections, so that when they lose at the final place, they do not come out thinking it was their right. And the last thing is to make sure that the issue of looking at power as an end in itself, we should also make sure that we thaw down the effects of power in this country, because the power around the presidency is what makes all this ulabalu around these presidential elections.